We are moving to another part of our tutorial. We're going to deal with arrays now. So let's check out one file, prog print data equals bsj505. Remember that I ran the libname statement before. Employee donations, run, and maybe let's create a title, employee donations, and title here. So we can also maybe print just a few observations, like let's say 10. Just move it here so that you could see the whole code. So we are printing out this file to see what we have. And let me just show it to you. So a file has an employee ID and also 4 quarters of donations that employees did to different kinds of charities. And this is how they paid, right? Like cash or check, payroll deduction, and so on. So what we would like to do now, so imagine that the company decided to introduce some kind of social program, and every donation that for every donation that you give, they would like also to add on top of that, they would like to add 25%. So that will, instead of donating, let's say $10, pretty much you will be donating $12.15. And this is the point of all this thing. So every quarter the donations are going to grow by 25%, and for that we will have to create we will have to use the array function, or not array function. We will actually be working with arrays, and an array is a range of different columns. You will be going across various columns, and the columns do not have to be the same, but actually we're going to work with the same range of columns from quarter 1 to quarter 4, for example, or month, and so on. I'm going to show you different files, and we are going to work with them. So let's go and create data called donations. Set what we're using, bsj405 dot employee donations, and let's create an array. We'll call it contrib, and contrib. From quarter, it's called qtr1 dash qtr4. So that array will be applied to all these 4 quarters. Do I equals 1, 2. Instead of specifying how many iterations we will need to do, we'll just use dim contrib. So dimension, the dimension of contribution. So calculating that you have to do like 4 iterations, you'll just say, okay, so do like until this one. So that's do, and now contrib I will be from 1 to dim equals contrib I multiplied by 125. So that's by how much your donation is going to increase. And because if you remember, when we do a do loop, you will always have to end it, and we'll also drop our I. We don't want to keep it, but for now we will actually keep it so that I could show you what happens, and then we will drop it in the next, like we'll rewrite the program and we'll drop that I after you have seen what we have done. So prog print data donations, run. So let me just show to you what we just did. Maybe I should have just created a few observations. Let me just rerun this program, and let me just print out a few observations here. Okay. So now let me show to you something. Let's come back to our file, and you will see that we created a new thing here, I, right? The new variable is called I, and it contains how many iterations it had to go through. So also let me show to you the comparison, right? So proc print data equals BSTA405 employee donations, and I will also print the first 10 observations. Run. Maybe actually let's print 3 from each end, and that will help us get this good comparison of both, right? So that you could see by how much everything changed. So that was our first employee who donated $25, but here our company increased the donation by 25%. Here people donated 15, this person donated $15 every quarter. Again, because of our company, now that they are making higher donations. And the same happened here, so by 25%. So what is interesting is, yes, you can actually do this, right? You can increase donations. And what is interesting about arrays is that actually the value of each cell increased by 25%. So if you have the operation that you would like to repeat across various columns and the operation is uniform, that's when you will apply arrays. So in this case, we were increasing every cell across these 4 columns from quarter 1 to quarter 4 by 25%. So if you want to increase everything or decrease everything, if you want to add some value or some letter or whatever across a few columns, then it makes sense for you to use arrays. Definitely you could have done it, you know, on a column basis. You could say multiply quarter 1 by 1.25, multiply quarter 2 by 125, and so on and so forth. But maybe it's not the best thing for you to do, right? So now let's drop I, because you don't want to keep it. I mean, it's not useful. And you could see that it actually, instead of creating 4 iterations, going through 4 iterations, it went through 5, so it couldn't reach your quarter 5 anymore because there is no quarter 5, and it came back, right? So that's how it worked. And yeah, so we could also create something like total here, and we could say total equals, and if you remember our numerical functions, it will be sum of qtr1 dash qtr4, and we will see how much and you definitely have to use the sum function here because we have sometimes some missing values, and we will see how much the person was donating because with the help of the company, right? We cannot do it for employee donations. We could actually still create a new data set, let's call it dons, and set BSTA405 employee donations, and we'll also create here total equals sum of qtr1 dash qtr4 and run. So right now we are going to move this, let me just move this here so that we could compare, and I will also change the data set here to the new one that we created with the total. Okay, dons. Okay, so let me just run them one by one. Oh, sorry, data donations. We ran them. Here's our total. Our total is here. Perfect. Let me run this one. Our total is here. And let me print these two. Okay, great. So as you can see now, our total has increased in both cases, and it's because we increased it by 25% per each quarter. Okay, so now let's also imagine that we have another data set. What we want to do, we want to take a 5% discount into account. So let's go for it. We have this data set that we are going to see now. Proc print data equals BSJ445 orders underscore mid-year run, and let's only print, let's say again, the first maybe 3 observations, who cares. Also, what we are going to do is add the title, orders. Okay, and let's also close the title. Okay, so this is our data set, and it's only the first 3 observations that were there. Customer ID, month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we would like to do, let's imagine that this customer, or each customer that we have on this data set, each of them paid in advance. And if you remember, sometimes we have these allowances or something like that. So if a customer pays, let's say before a specific period, they can get a 5% discount. If they pay exactly on the date, they have no discount. If they pay after, we could even penalize them. So let's imagine that customers in this data set actually paid in advance, and that's why they are eligible for this 5% discount. So in total, the company didn't get the sums that we observe here, but they got this sum minus 5%. So in general, they got 95% of the order. Let's go for it. So we have to go with the data step, data orders underscore discount, and again it has to be a uniform operation across a few columns, or across a range of columns, right, from month 1 to month 6. You cannot just apply it, if you had only if you had to apply it to only one column, you will not work with arrays. But if you want to apply it across many columns, so that's when arrays become really handy. Orders underscore mid-year. Okay, and we are creating an array, and we'll call it disc. So this is our discount, and we are going to apply it to month 1, month 6. But again, your arrays do not have to be exactly like, they don't have to have the same names and stuff. You just have to enumerate what you're including into your array. That's it. Do I equals 1 to the dimension of disk. I kind of find it really nice to use the dimension so that you don't have to calculate how many iterations you will need. Disk I equals disk I multiplied by 0.95, and remember to close it. Remember to close your do loop. We'll drop I and run, and we'll also give it a title discount applied, and maybe let's call it 5% discount applied. Proc print data equals orders underscore discount run title. Perfect. So maybe let's not drop I now, and let's see how many iterations we have. Oh, sorry, actually I can just turn it into a comment. So we're not going to apply it now, but we will apply it later. So let's do it. We have our discount applied, and again you can observe that there were 7 iterations. And yes, so this is our month 1, month 2, and so on. So now the values should have been discounted by 5%. To see if it happened or not, we are going to do this. So first of all, I will activate the drop I thing, and also will for example just print out only the first 3 observations of this data set. And let me just copy this one, and let me print here the first 3 observations as well. So that will make our comparison much easier. So let me rerun this data step where we're creating the array. So you can see now that we had discounted the values, right? So for example, here we had 213.1. The expected revenue was this, but actually we received only 202 and about 50 cents, and so on. So our discount was uniformly applied across month, and that's what happened with the help of our array. So now let's imagine the other one. So that was basically like the actual proceeds from our sales are presented after we have applied the 5% discount. They are presented in this file over here. So let's do something else, and let's increase the pay by 15%. Increasing the pay by 15%. So let's imagine, you know, it happened to me actually at Concordia when I was working as a TA for the linguistics class, for one of the linguistics classes. They decided to increase my pay and all other TAs' pays by I don't know how much, but they had to pay retrospectively a specific sum of money. So let's imagine this is what happened after some union negotiations. The pay had to be increased by enormous 15%. Let's imagine that that's what happened. And how do we calculate the pay now? Let's decide. Let's do it this way. Let's use an array, and let's apply the pay. Oh, sorry, I didn't show the file yet. So let's print it. Data equals BST 445 BSTA 445 dot end of year run. So let me just say title pay, and I will close the title. So let's see what we have here. We have here a payment from month 1 to month 12. Maybe these are contractors or something like that. Maybe the person was absent sometimes. We don't know. Maybe something else happened. We don't know exactly. We also have some other information like extra one, etc. So, but in fact, we are printing the full file, and this file only has 3 rows. So maybe these people had to have their pay increased. Actual row number 2 doesn't have anything, so nothing is going to happen. But then the person who works, the employee with ID number 1 and the person with ID number 3, they definitely got paid. So let's go and let's create another array. So data, we'll call it increase, set BST 445 dot end of year. And now let's create this array and let's call it pay. And it doesn't have to coincide with these names here, okay? And let's indicate the range that we are interested in. Pay 1 dash pay 12. Do I equals 1 to dimension of pay. And let's activate our loop. So pay I equals pay I multiplied by 1.15. End of story. And drop I like this, I not ID, I. And let's also create a total. Total equals sum of pay 1 dash pay 12. And run. And we can also do the same just to see by how much it's different. Data no increase, set BSG for 5, end of year, and total equals sum of pay 1 dash pay 12. Run. And we'll print both files. Print data equals, so the first one is called increase, run, and print data equals no increase, run. So we can give them a title increase by 15%, and this one will be called title no increase. And just let's close the 2 titles. Okay, so let's run this one. yeah, so we're increasing the pay by 15%. So let's run this part here, F and F3. We ran it. Now let's run also the data no increase file. Okay, no errors, that's good. And now let's run these proc print statements, both of them together. So you can see that actually we have increased our pay by 15%, and our total is different now. And again, that 15% increase has been taken into account. And that's it. So that's how you work with arrays. And there are definitely a lot more things you can do with arrays, but I just showed you a few of them. And that's it for this tutorial.